Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Don't worry, I'm not going to burst into Auld Lang Syne or anything like that. But be honest with me, have you said New Year, New Me yet? I hope not, but I do hope that you have a set of goals written down to completely rock next year. As for me, I've been thinking about what new services that I can offer, and I've decided to add a few podcast services that will sit alongside my blogging and ghostwriting, because my two most asked questions at the moment are, Neil, how do I buy crypto coins? 2, how do I start a podcast? And I'm quickly learning that very often people don't care about creating RSS feeds, learning how to edit a podcast, or how to send Bitcoin to Bittrex. They just want to hand it over to someone that can do it for them. So I'm going to try and embrace that in 2018 and help people by removing all those friction points, because most people just don't care about the technology or the obstacles. They just want it done. So as for everyone listening, if you're struggling for your goals or what services you can provide next year, what are the top questions that you're asked? What do people see you as the go-to guy or the go-to gal for? I think that should give you all the answers that you need. But hey, enough of my ramblings. I want to introduce you all to a serial tech entrepreneur today. TSO Logic is the third tech startup that Aaron Rallo, CEO, has been part of. Prior to that, he held positions at Microsoft and Fujifilm and spent 16 years building and operating online platforms for large retailers, including big names such as Walmart, Costco and Tesco. And TSO Logic serves Fortune 500 companies and also partners with AWS, Azure and major cloud providers to help enterprises right-size their multiple clouds for their major migration and storage decisions. I think his time at large and small companies have been formative in his vision for building a strong team and culture that delivers superior customer service. So let's get him on the show to find out more. So buckle up, hold on tight, because I want to beam your ears all the way to Canada so we can speak with Aaron Rallo, tech entrepreneur and CEO of TSO Logic, who's waiting to share his story with us today. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Aaron. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Aaron Rallo. I'm the founder and CEO of TSO Logic. This is my third startup that we're now growing, and I love to start companies, love to build great products, and this is my latest iteration of it.
Now, with you being on your third startup there, it's fair to say, I think, that you're a serial tech entrepreneur. And with TSO Logic being your third startup, and prior to that you held positions, I think, at Microsoft, Fujifilm, and spent 16 years building and operating online platforms for large retailers, including the big names such as Walmart, Costco and Tesco. But what makes you get out of bed in the morning, and where do you get your energy from?
Yeah, I get so much energy from customers. One of the things I've really enjoyed throughout my career is getting to provide services to really large retailers, the Amazons of the world, Amazon Web Services, the Walmarts, the Costcos, these big customers that are just obsessed with great customer satisfaction, because I'm also obsessed with great customer satisfaction and great experiences. So for me, I get energy from customers. I love to build products. I love to build companies. I like to build relationships. I end up getting a very clear vision for what the future should be in a specific area. In achieving that vision, it's no longer a job. It's a mission.
Now, as someone that is quite passionate about getting feedback from customers and relationships, I want to tap into your expertise a little bit here and ask, how do you think bosses can create that right interview gauntlet to find hires? But most importantly, with the best culture fit, because that's something that I've noticed time and time again that people don't get right.
Yeah, hiring is hard. It's not only hard to attract the best talent, but it's also hard to weed out who the right fits are, for your environment and for your culture. So for us, the first thing we do is we look for like-minded individuals. We look for people that are and will be customer company focused, good team members, people that we want to work with. We spend more hours a day in a lot of cases with our coworkers than we do our family, and all of that has to come out through that interview process to understand if they're going to be a good fit. So one of the things we do is we make the interview loop hard. I've modeled it very much after the interview loops that I went through at Microsoft, and very similar techniques that are used in other large companies. Is we bring people in, they have to meet with multiple team members that come from diverse backgrounds. For our engineers, we actually have a test that they have to go through, and we even do paired programming exercises where we spend a half a day or at least a couple of hours programming side by side. And this does a couple things. One thing it does is that it weeds out those that are only partially interested in the new job. And if you're not serious about making a career change and joining a new company, that process will weed you out, because it takes a bit of a commitment. But it also really lets us get to know the individuals, not just as programmers, but also as people. And as I mentioned, we have them interview with a diverse group, different skill sets, different personalities all weigh in, and we have a really strict policy about not hiring jerks under any circumstances. You can find some of the smartest people around, but if they're not going to be a good team member, contribute to the culture, it just doesn't work.
And it's funny you should say that there, that you don't believe in hiring jerks, but so many people do. Do you think companies underestimate how much a bad hire will actually cost a company?
I think that any company that's experienced a bad hire will no longer underestimate it. But I think it sometimes it comes down to the hiring managers knowing that. I think there's a certain level of expertise that you have once you've gone through this a few times, because one of the things that can happen is when talent is in short supply, you have a tendency to lower the bar because you're trying to put people in chairs and get the work out the door. And I think that's so costly, and it can really hurt your culture, hurt your environment, hurt your products. And I think it's just too big of a risk to take, frankly.
And the hiring process is a two-way street. So with essential digital skills now in short supply, and potential employees having, they've got a lot of power where they can go where they're most needed. So how can companies attract top talent and give them something that the likes of, let's say, Google or Facebook just can't?
Yeah, we try to really offer up something a little bit different than what the big companies would offer. Yeah. I mean, paying good salaries, good benefit packages, that's all kind of table stakes these days. You're going to do that regardless. What we try to offer to really draw people in is really looking for the people that want to make a contribution and see that contribution reflected in the company's success in a very short period of time. One of the things that frustrated me when I was working at Microsoft and some of the other large companies was new ideas would translate into new product, which could take years to reach the market. One of the great things that we offer at TSO Logic is very fast iteration cycles. We think of things, we innovate on a regular basis, and the results of those hard work can really be seen in the product in almost real time, and certainly benefit to the company in very short order. Never really more than a quarter or two. So I think that's very gratifying, and I think the other thing is letting people work in the latest technologies, such as cloud, such as using newer development techniques, new environments to program within, and then giving them training on those environments. As a great example, just a few weeks ago, we sent our entire team of programmers to AWS reInvent in Las Vegas. We sent a large team of programmers to Microsoft Ignite just to learn the latest techniques, stay up to date with what the cloud providers are doing and how we can use that information to build faster and make our products better.
Now, I also read how you believe that the Agile method is a perfect way to ensure that everyone on your team has a voice. And you did kind of mention that there about getting that feedback from people. But can you expand on that?
Absolutely. I think Agile is what you make of it, right? And there's a lot of variations of Agile, and I think it's important for companies and cultures and teams to find the iteration of Agile that's going to work best for them. In our case, we work on 2-week sprint intervals, and we spend a solid day planning and doing retrospectives as we go into each of those sprints. I've really, having been working in organizations and building product in a variety of environments for many, many years, we've been using Agile for probably the last 6 years of my career in my teams, and it's been really great because it's very, very malleable, and you can make it what you need. We really use the retrospectives to make sure that everybody's voice is heard. what's worked well, what's not working well. And that's not just something our developers participate in. We also pull the business into those discussions, because there's things that the business does that will impact our tech teams, and there's things that our tech teams are doing that will impact the business. So our CTO, Chris Tivol, really drives that, leads that. He understands our culture so well that he's able to then have his leadership team understand the culture, push that down. And that turns these retrospectives into very, very positive experiences instead of negative experiences. And we use it as a way for people to get things off their chest, voice new ideas, brainstorm, really get the word out for what they're seeing that needs to be done or changed to make things better.
Now, TSO Logic serves Fortune 500 companies and also partners with AWS, Azure, and other major cloud providers, all to help enterprises right-size their multiple clouds, essentially for their major migration and storage decisions. But for anyone listening, can you offer an overview of why these businesses are actually coming to you and what makes TSO Logic unique from all those other solutions out there?
Yeah, most certainly. So what we've done with TSO Logic is taken a process that used to require lots of manual work, tremendous amounts of data, and even a little bit of guesswork to try to figure out how I could get from on-premise to cloud and what that would cost. So what TSO Logic has done is created a discovery mechanism as well as an algorithm that allows us to ingest data related to on-premise compute and then use an algorithm to figure out what it would cost to operate that compute in an optimized fashion inside of either public or private cloud. So we'll for example, take and analyze a whole bunch of workloads running on thousands of physical and virtual servers inside of an environment. We'll look at what kind of software they're running. We're looking at how it's being used. And then we can very quickly figure out what it would cost to run that in the cloud. Now, that's a very nuanced process. The cloud catalogs change almost every single month. Application utilization patterns are also constantly changing. So what TSO Logic does that's very unique is, one, we stay incredibly current with the cloud providers so that we're always analyzing the latest and greatest that they have to offer. But two, that we've really built up this proprietary data collection and algorithmic analysis platform that allows you very simply with the push of a button to figure out what that business case looks like for an optimized cloud-based environment. And what this does is it helps enterprise clients, it helps organizations fast track the path, right? Because before they're going to be allowed to sign up with a multi-year cloud agreement, they're going to have to get financial stakeholders to sign off on it, other internal business units to sign off on it. And what TSO does very quickly is creates the business case that they need, but then also it helps them along that journey through transformation. So, AWS, Azure, Google Compute Platform, they all use our platform, offer it to the enterprise organizations, and the enterprises then get to use it to create that business case they need to get moving forward. And we've really enjoyed those relationships.
So can you also tell me about your recent study where organizations that migrate those existing on-premise workloads to the cloud, but ultimately without revisiting the way services are provisioned and throwing away money in the process?
Yeah, there's the way that enterprise data centers have evolved over the last several years is they were the compute that was provisioned inside of them. There wasn't a lot of scientific analysis done in terms of how big of a server they should buy or how that server is going to be used. There was just a lot of compute thrown into these data centers so that internal consumers, application developers can provision the compute that they think that they need. Nobody ever really went back and said, do they really need a server that's this big? Could they get away with a server that's a little bit smaller and satisfy the workload level with the same SLA? So what's happened is data centers have become, from a compute perspective and from a storage perspective, they've become rather over-provisioned. There's a lot of Ferraris living inside of these data centers that they're being driven like Chevettes, and it's a problem, but it's also an opportunity, because when you start evaluating those workloads and say, hey, what's it going to take if I want to run this at AWS or Azure, what you're really going to find is that if you were to take that server, that great fast Ferrari of a server, and you want to run that in the cloud, you're not going to save a whole lot of money by doing that. But if you realize that you're only using a small portion of this server's capabilities, the benefit of cloud is you could choose from hundreds of different options. So now you can right size it as you're going, find the right instance size for the job, and that's going to really drive down your cost of delivering that compute. So the study that we put out basically evaluated the provisioning levels across over 100,000 servers living inside of data centers today, looked at the usage, utilization patterns, and software running, and said, if I were to move these to the cloud, what would it cost, and how can I optimize it? And what we found is that about 84% of the servers living in on-premise data centers today were over-provisioned. And when you move those workloads to cloud, you can save over 36% in cost over what you're doing today on-premise just by getting the right size instances to support that workload. The key is being able to evaluate all that in real time, and it's too much data to manipulate in your head or on a napkin or even in Excel. I mean, you're talking about millions, tens of millions of data points that you have to pour through to figure these things out, and that's the power of an algorithmic platform.
So as we come to the end of 2017, it's that time of year where we're starting to look at what opportunities are available next year. So I've got to ask, what's going to be your primary focus at TSO Logic in 2018? Is there anything that you can share with us about what you've got planned for next year?
Yeah, most certainly. Top of mind for us is especially at a company of our size, we have to continue to execute perfectly. We have to be staying current with the cloud providers. We have to maintain ourselves as their trusted partner for creating these optimized business cases in a very fast and accurate fashion. From a business perspective, we're going to be expanding a little bit more into global markets. We're starting to get brought into opportunities overseas as we're starting to see more growth in Europe and in Asia. And really most importantly, we just have to be great. We have to be great for our customers. We have to be great for our partners like AWS, and that's our focus in 2018 is growth, execution, and just being great every chance we get.
So your time at companies large and small really does seem to play a big part in your formative vision for building a strong team and culture. But what is the best piece of advice from lessons that you've learned along the way that you could pass on to anyone listening?
I think I started off my career as a programmer. I was an individual contributor, and over the course of the last, I guess it's been over 20 years now. Over the course of that time, I've evolved into various leadership roles and CEO roles and management roles, and I think the best thing that I've really learned in one of the personal transitions that I was able to make successfully several years back is hire great people and empower them to let them lead. If you try to do everything yourself, your company won't scale. You've got to hire great people. You've got to trust those people. You've got to instill your culture into them, but then let them take it and put their own spin on it to their teams and so forth. So you keep everybody focused, but you gotta just let people do their thing and let them run. The other thing that I've learned is stay focused on the customer. Is be focused on listening to the customers, not doing everything that the customer says, right? Because they don't always know, but you got to listen. You've got to incorporate their feedback into product, and you can never ever stop innovating. Change is a constant. Build your organization to support that change. Build your software platforms to support change. And if you can do those things, I think you have the foundation.
Fantastic advice. Now, before I let you go, could I just ask if there is anyone listening that would like to contact you, your team, with any questions about anything that we've talked about today, or just want to learn more about TSO Logic, what is the best way of doing that?
Yeah, so tsologic.com. It's spelled just like it sounds, tsologic.com. There's a contact us page on there you can reach out to, and we're always happy to talk. You can also find me on LinkedIn as Aaron Rallo, CEO of TSO Logic. I think we probably also have a Facebook page out there, but yeah, please do reach out. Always happy to talk.
Well, a huge thanks for coming on today. I love the fact that, yes, you are a serial tech entrepreneur and you've worked at some fantastic places along the way, but I think it's your journey that's helped give you that vision for building that strong team and culture that will ultimately deliver the great, fantastic customer service. So a big thank you for coming on and sharing that story and how it shaped you.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much for your time.
I love stories like this and hope that Aaron's journey as a serial tech entrepreneur will inspire you to do great things this year too. I mean, sure, it's easy to sit there and binge watch box sets on Netflix. I'm guilty of doing that too. But writing your goals down and turning a dream into something real is much easier than you think, as long as you put the hours in. And I'm living proof of that. And Aaron, he takes things to an entirely new level. But so can you. So let's try and see some of that inspiration and positivity in the room today. What makes you get out of bed in the morning, and where do you get your energy? And what would you like to achieve in 2018? Send me the answer to those questions to techblogwriter@outlook.com or tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. Because if I can help and support you this year, I will. And if you also go across to my website, techblogwriter.co.uk/podcast, you'll also find a new way of being able to send me a virtual voicemail. So feel free to send me a recording and we'll play that on the next episode too. But that's it for today's episode, and that's it for December, and indeed 2017. So I raise my glass to you all and say, Happy New Year! Who fancies doing this again in 2018? Hopefully you said yes, and I'll see each and every one of you on the other side. But until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.